Man, it's been so long. What's the name of our podcast?
Can you change the music?
Can you change the music? Right. All right.
Which is such a good title because the people that I've like pitched this to that do what we do are instantly like, that's really good.
That makes sense.
And the people that don't do what we do, you can tell they don't get it. And they're like, oh, cool. Yeah, that's great. And I'm like, yes, we picked a good title.
That's perfect.
Because if you know, you know.
So this is it. Welcome to Can You Change the Music, the podcast. I added the podcast. That's not what the name is. It's just Can You Change the Music, but here we go. And so we're going to start this off. I have a question, and we were talking beforehand. We want this episode to be kind of hard hitting for creatives out there, and I think this first question is as hard hitting as I can think of, as I can muster, because it's a very simple question, but you can go layers and layers and layers. And so without further ado, here's the question. Why do you do what you do? Why are you a creative? Why did you start a freelance agency?
Yeah.
Do you consider it a freelance agency? But why? Why do you do it? Why are you in this creative space of video production?
Yeah. And not to wax eloquent on the question, but I feel like that question is critical for anyone who does what we do. I mean, everyone's reason is a little bit different, but if you don't have that answer and are convicted about it, if you're missing that, you're going to burn out quickly and you're going to feel like you can't find the floor and you're just going to find yourself in a tailspin. And I've been there before. Quick background. I mean, I know, Joe, you know most of this, but I started my first business about 5 years ago from now. It was like late 2020, and I started a recording studio. And so it was starting a business in a creative field. And at the time, it was just like, this sounds like a cool idea. I have been a musician my whole life, and I had this vision for this big like coffee house, music house sort of thing. But I didn't know anything about running a business. I barely knew how to produce music. And I was just like, it's just a great opportunity that fell in my lap. And so like, why wouldn't I pursue this? Over time, that business only lasted a couple of years. It had a sweet spot, and it's a deeper, I'd happily tell that story sometime, but it's not worth getting into.
Well, if you want to know that story, you have another podcast where
That's
you really dive into this.
That's true. I do tell that story. I'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah.
So that you can hear it. But
it's so good, but Over the Edge.
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
thank you.
So good.
Yeah.
I gotta plug that, man.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I told the story in kind of like a documentary narrative format.
Which is literally the reason I want to do this podcast with you was because of that podcast.
Really?
Like that, it was so good. I felt like that podcast is a setup to this one. In a completely different format, but I mean the storytelling, all of that stuff. So I'm not going to interrupt you again. That's not true. I'm probably going to interrupt you again, but go ahead.
Well, to that end, kind of like moving past all the story stuff and the rise and fall like that, I had that business. It worked for a while. I had to close it. I just went into a full-time job at a church doing creative stuff. And so I kept creating, but I always felt like there was something that felt correct, something that felt like I was in my lane when I was doing it for myself. And I don't think it was like a pride thing. Like I can't do this for somebody else, because when you're running a business, you go from having one boss to having like 12, as many clients as you can get. They become like your boss kind of. But so I don't think it was that, but I think there was just something inspiring about the idea that the decisions that I'm making for this thing are mine, that I am kind of breaking the rules of how you're supposed to do the standard life or the American life or whatever, where it's like you work a 9 to 5 and you have some fun times on the weekends or in the evenings. And that's just kind of like the structure of your life. And I was like, what if I could blow all that up and I could decide what I wanted my life to be, which sounds great on paper. Like, so about little over a year ago, as of now, so it would be October 24, I left my full-time job and I went back into starting like my own business. But I pivoted from music to more of a video production kind of pocket. And honestly, the last year plus has been a journey of me trying to figure out what my company, Sleepy Dog Creative, what it's supposed to be, what I'm supposed to be doing, asking some of those core questions about like who's your ideal client and what's the main thing that you do for them and all that stuff. And I'm figuring it out, but it is truly a journey.
Yeah. But your why really,
Yeah,
interestingly enough, like most people are like, oh, I'm passionate about video production and that's my why. And like, that's a great why. Like,
yeah,
but your why is really more to do about the lifestyle you want to live.
yeah,
Like what is that? What does that mean? What does that look like? Like whatever that means for any of you. I do think that working for yourself, it is, I don't think it is prideful. I think it's, I feel I'm about to say a statement that's super prideful and I'm catching myself. But I think it's like there's something enlightening about like this idea of doing something not for somebody else, but for your household and the life that you have. I think there's, enlightening is not the right word, but there's empowering. Like there's something empowering about, making that shift. And actually, I started a YouTube channel specifically around this idea too. And for me, it was like this mindset shift and this training shift that we've had our whole life. Like you said, 9 to 5.
yeah,
It is insane what it can be accomplished if you get out of a 9 to 5 mindset.
yeah,
And it's difficult because I think for me, I'm just going to jump in with my why. Unless were you done?
I had a thought.
Let's say your thought and then I'll say mine.
Yeah. To building off of that. So this is how I think about it. When I was a kid, there was a standard way that I could make money, and it was I got an allowance at the beginning of the month, and it wasn't much. I mean, I think it was like $10 or $20, right? But the way I see it, like most people, when they're planned for their financial future or their life or what they want to build, it's structured around what is inherently there, right? Because they're probably working a salary or some sort of like, and maybe you get an additional job, but generally it's like, if I want to save for this vacation or this future or whatever the thing is, this is how much time and this is how we'll have to limit our spending and all this stuff. On the contrary, when I was a kid as well, I got into shoveling driveways in the wintertime. And the way I thought about it, I was probably like 10 or 12 years old. But anytime I saw the snow start to come down thick enough that it would pile up, I would put on my boots and my gloves and I would go door to door in my neighborhood and I would say, can I shovel your driveway? And if I got to the point where they asked how much, I knew I had the job, because I would say, whatever you feel like the job's worth. Because I found 8 out of 10 times the person would overpay and it made up for the times that somebody underpaid. But I say all this to say, like, what was deeply compelling was the idea that I could go outside right now, I could work kind of a hellish 2 hours, and I could make like $100. And it kind of felt like I, like, quote unquote, cheated the game of like.
And this is in the early 2000s, so that could buy you so many Snickers
right.
at that time.
Right. Yeah. And so that idea has always been super compelling, where it's like, okay, I could work this 9 to 5 job and I can be really careful with my spending, and maybe over the next year and a half I can build up the savings, or maybe there's a way that I can customize the way that I'm doing the life stuff and maximize the potential for me to bring in that money.
So now here's a question, and before I get into mine, because this is such a fascinating thought for me, because we've talked about why, and this covers entrepreneurship now. So you want to be an entrepreneur. You want to be somebody who owns a business or an agency or a freelance thing. But now then I want to dissect that why and be annoying. Like, so why video production over anything else that you could have done?
That's an excellent question that I ask myself. So I finally put enough language towards my like why to generally have kind of a guidance for it. And it was the things I want to do in my life. I want to create things that matter and build a life that I want. And there's enough vagueness in there that it gives me options to figure out what that means. I found that I loved creating things in some sort of artistic medium. Like I was a musician as a kid, and then I went into producing music. And my pivot to video was a mix of practicality and inspiration, because I did get better at video. We did some video stuff at the studio, some music video stuff, some just standard video production. But I also noticed like far more people needed it. Like going from producing music to producing videos opened up the market like 1,000-fold, because all of a sudden any business could need what I do. Very few people needed a song to be produced. You know what I mean? At least that was my experience.
Very few people who could pay for
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So many people want it.
Yeah, and I'm in the Chicago suburbs, as in like an hour and a half drive out of it. And so there's not like a music culture here where there's like career musicians around that need what we were doing. So part of it was just a practical switch. But I think also I found I really care about telling stories that I think are important. And I know it's kind of the cliche that every video marketer says is like, we're storytellers, and that's true, but like that is really the thing.
That is a cliche that people do, but that is so far from a cliche for you. I think you are one of the best storytellers I know, and I'm not just saying that. Like the way you tell again, go listen to his podcast Over the Edge if you don't believe me. Like there is a unique like facet in the way that you tell stories and the way that you want to tell stories that I think separates you. Like you actually mean it. So there is a difference. Continue.
I appreciate that. And it's a story to that end. I went to a networking event, I don't know, 3-4 months ago or something. And it was kind of like a referral type group, and it was like a guest day. So there was a bunch of people visiting, and there was a point where we're all sitting at a table, and we each took our turn standing up and giving like a 30-second who we are. And the tables were organized in like a U, and I was at the head of one of the tables. So I was either going to be the very first person or the very last person. And I ended up being the last person. And I was like, all right, that's maybe better, right? Because then I can see how everyone pitched and I can adjust. There was three other people that stood up that did similar things to what I did, like video editor or a video producer or something like that. The first person stood up and he's like, you know, I have my wife and I run this video production company. He's like, the cliche that we say is like we tell stories. And I was like, oh, frick. Oh, man, that was my whole thing. And then, like, it went to the next person who's, like, the video editor, and he's like this other person said, you know, like, we're storytellers, this and that. And I was like, oh, man, I can't.
So now you have to differentiate.
So I had to pivot. And so I don't remember exactly how I pivoted, but I did. I was like, okay, well, knowing that, I need to adjust what I say, because saying I have a knack for storytelling is just not gonna connect with these people. It was funny. It was what made me realize, like, so many people say we're the storyteller, because it's kind of it sounds more bougie than I make videos.
Yeah, well, I think the thing for me is I've learned the hard way. Like, yeah, sure, I tell stories, and that's what I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And that is part of my why, is I do like telling stories. And I think that things are cliche because they're true.
That's true.
But for me, I want to tell stories that solve problems too. So they're not just impactful, they're not just meaningful, they're actually accomplishing a purpose. And I think that's been a differentiator for me, is like when I say that I want to add value to somebody's business or to somebody's company, I don't mean I want to provide a pretty video. Yeah. I want to do something that's actually going to help you out of this situation you're currently facing. Because that's why people hire out people like us, right? Like they're looking for a solution. Maybe they need more leads, that's their solution. Maybe they need more brand awareness, that's their solution. They need trust and visibility. Like what we do in the storytelling that we have and the way that we have. So for me, I guess I'll just start getting into my story as a kind of a caveat to that, because
yeah, Joe, what's your why?
So my biggest why is very similar to yours. Is I I I was a pastor. I did um and so obviously like as a pastor, my whole purpose was telling like the story that mattered
Hmm.
most, right? Um and and I, uh through don't need to go into the whole backstory of that, but in 2020 is when I started picking up filmmaking because COVID hit. I was a youth pastor at the time, and I had
So
to
you were flush with cash.
I was barely necessity. Like,
Yeah.
was, what was that, like, essential
Yeah, the
essential
bare
workers.
essentials. Yeah.
They considered us essential, and I was like, oh my God. But Quinn Savanac, who's a good friend of yours as well, good friend of mine,
Yeah.
he was our digital media person at the church at the time before we, we're part of the bigger church there. Um, and he didn't have time to make content for the youth group and for the church on Sunday morning. And so I had to figure out how.
Yeah.
And so I got, my wife is a photographer, longtime photographer. I took her Canon 80D, which your camera you're very, very familiar with. And I would set up these talking head things, and I would just film me preaching a sermon to the youth group. I put it on YouTube, attach a Zoom link, which I found out you shouldn't do that way. I'm not going to tell that story, but that was crazy. But over the course of that, I was like, man, I really like creating. Like, it's like very expressive for me. Like I'm also a musician. I'm a drummer, and I love the idea of expressing myself in this medium. It felt very comfortable and natural, and I found that I enjoyed being behind the camera more than I did being in front of the camera, which is strange for like an extrovert personality.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the nerdiness of it, the techiness of it, the seeing something come to fruition and the way that you could create that and express that story. It was like, I fell in love with it. And then a guy came to me and he's like, hey, heard you know how to operate a camera. My daughter's getting married and we can't find anyone to film it. Would you film it for me? And I was like, ooh, those are different than that's because at that point, the only thing that I had done is film myself giving sermons.
And that's just like you put up a tripod.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and I didn't have any lights. I didn't have any equipment. And so I would sit next to a window or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
that was all I had.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'll give you $1,500. And I was like, I will figure it out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's,
The first time you hear someone offer like 4 figures for a job, you're like, it does not matter how complex it is. I will learn.
yeah. And so, and to put this in perspective, okay, there was a point in time where $1,500 was 2 months' salary for me.
Yeah.
And that wasn't that long ago.
And like the idea that you could, obviously there's editing and all this stuff, but
Yeah.
like you can make that over the course of a couple of days.
Right.
Is
I was like,
wild. Yeah.
I was like, so that's when it first occurred to me that you could make money doing this,
Mm-hmm.
because somebody was like, I'll give you money. So then I started reaching out to people like, hey, do you need your wedding film? I would just like spam people on. I still do that. But
I mean, if it works, dude.
but like, so that 2020, I get hired as the campus pastor 2021. So I kind of slowed down filming, but I always remember saying to my wife, like, if I wasn't doing ministry, I would want to do this. And the reason why goes back to like, I work really hard. Like when I was a pastor, I worked really hard. I probably worked more than I should have. But when I was an employee, I've had 30 different jobs over the course of my lifetime, because when you grow up in poverty, like you just learn how to do stuff. My dad always taught me, not through verbal teaching, but like the way that my dad works. Like you just, he's a foreman on a railroad crew, and he knows how to do every single job on the railroad. So whenever jobs get bumped, my dad doesn't get bumped. Like, because he knows how to do everything.
Yeah. Like
And
he became irreplaceable.
Right. And so like I learned how to do that in any job that I did. I just learned how to do everything. Like when I was a youth pastor, I learned how to do the soundboard. I learned how to do lighting. I learned how to, like, I could tear down our entire stage and set it back up. Just like the way that I learned how to. So when I learned how to do video production, I learned how to everything.
Which, I mean, for better or worse, is kind of how you got to do it.
Right.
Mhm.
Especially when you're starting out. So I went into, I'm leaving the church now. I don't really want to go get a factory job.
Mhm.
I don't really want to go work for somebody. My story in the church is, you know, I kind of felt burned by having leadership.
Yeah. Like it's complicated at best.
It's complicated. And there's been so much forgiveness and so much like I'm past that. But at that time,
yeah.
I didn't want to go work for somebody else.
Mhm.
Like I've had horrible working experiences, but I was trained in the 9 to 5, like grind, and
Yeah.
you work your butt off and you work yourself up the ladder.
Yeah.
Having a taste of somebody pay me to do something that I was in complete control of, and then I got to keep all of that money, I was like, I wonder if I could make something like this work.
Yeah.
And so, October 2023 was when I was deciding that I'm gonna leave. I didn't officially leave the church until January, but it was in October that I decided
Yeah.
for sure, like, okay, this is gonna happen.
So you had about a year lead time on me.
Yeah. And that through that whole year, I was trying to convince you to start your own.
Yeah. A couple people were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take credit as much as I can because I was one of the people. But like,
Yeah. No, you were.
but
Well,
because I'm like, you're 10 times more talented than I am. It doesn't make any sense. What are you doing?
well, I don't know if that's really true.
Come on. He's being modest.
No.
Folks.
Here's what I'll say. My passion and strong suit, or like my strong suit as a result of it being a passion, is like creating. I start something with an idea of where I want it to be, and so often it's failed to hit that, and then it's forced me to be like, okay, why did it miss? What do I have to learn to do differently? And so, for better or worse, my priority has always been creating something that I feel like hits the mark. And I've learned the hard way that you can't be a perfectionist about things, and so I think I've found a balance. But I say for better or worse because on the flip side, what you've done really well, I think better than me, is figure out how to solve those problems you were talking about for clients, where it's like at the end of the day, a client doesn't need something to be pretty and polished if it accomplishes the goal. Like,
right.
if
So
you
now,
can,
but
that's
you're
awesome.
talking about overall business. Like
That's
I'm
fair.
looking at and this was a trap that I fell into early on, like thinking you have to be the best, and it limited me from like pitching certain jobs.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm realizing now I'm 2 years into this company, and I'm like, oh, you don't have to be the best. You have to communicate clearly expectations, goals, and you have to discover what the client actually needs.
Yeah.
Like and so like this leads into for like the why for me, why video.
Yeah.
So like why own a company similar to you? Like there's a lifestyle that I think is more attainable, with not just the financial attainability, but the flexibility, right? Of like, okay, I need to have this time off. I don't need to request approval from somebody to get this time off. Like last year was the first year that I got to go home for Thanksgiving. I've never been able to go home for Thanksgiving or Christmas because that's not what.
Those are the church hot times.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge motivating factor for starting my own business. Why video is one, I've never seen a medium that I've been able to express myself or the needs of a client quite like I have in this.
Yeah.
Like the idea, the cliche of storytelling, but like solving the problems that matter. It is an avenue that I found myself gravitating towards. And then two, I saw a scalability in something that was really, really sustainable, even through the ebbs and flows of like, people be like, AI is going to take over this. And I'm like, I actually saw the opposite when I started diving into what kind of company do I want to have? What kind of business do I want to operate? I'm going to operate a business for myself. What's it going to be?
Yeah.
And this one, the doors opened for it. So I think I've told you this story before, but like in October, I had that like, I really enjoy this. I think I want to do this as a business, or I would do this full time.
Yeah.
So I went to a Mexican restaurant in my town. I love their food. And I just was like, hey, can I make you a commercial for like $150 or $200? And he was like, yeah, sure. So I like shot this little thing for him for social media, and it like blew up. And I did the voiceover for it. And a bunch of people recognized my voice in the video that he put on Facebook. I was like Facebook and Instagram, and it went like viral in the town, you know, and I went from a town of like 5,000 people or something like that. And so there was as many views on the video as there was people in the town, you know what I mean? Like, and so people were reaching out to me like, hey, I heard your voice in this video for this restaurant. Who made that? And I was like, oh, I did. And they're like, oh, could you make me one? And like that happened like a lot that in October.
Which is a really good feeling.
Right. And that's when I was like, oh, I can do this. Like I can. And so from October on, I really had no job search. I knew I didn't want to do ministry anymore.
Yeah.
And so I didn't peter out while I was still pastoring, especially because nobody knew. Like nobody knew I was leaving.
Yeah.
That was, you know, proprietary information.
Yeah.
And so so I just kind of like under the table would do jobs here and there for people as they would pop up.
Yeah.
And then branded and launched in January of 2024, having kind of like built these relationships with clients already. And then I just went into that full bore. And then so my why is the doors opened. It was a medium that I felt confident and comfortable in, and I really, really enjoyed. And I saw scalability and future in.
Yeah.
And, you know, those factors still reign true as I navigate and progress in my business.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to get more into the details about why your why is so important. We'll see you soon. So yes, I want to talk about why it's so important to identify your own why. Because as we've just kind of established, like we have different reasons. There's some overlap, but there are different reasons that you and I have chosen to do this, to work for ourselves, to create our own business, to center it around making content of some sort, you know? I personally have experienced times where I didn't clearly know why. Like I didn't have my own language towards this is why I'm doing this. Like that whole create things that matter and build a life that I want. Like I didn't have those until, you know, I don't know, 6 to 8 months ago, right? And I've been creating things in some form or fashion for the last like 5 years. You know what I mean? And so why would you say it's so important to have your own why clearly defined?
So one of the guys that I look up to a lot is Mark Bone, who's like one of those big YouTuber guys from Canada.
Yeah.
Why is there so many amazing YouTubers from Canada?
That's a good question. I don't know.
But he always said like, you want to do things purposefully and not aimless. And I feel like if you can hone in on a why or a set of things that kind of ground you, like for you have those two things and they kind of ground you. And so if you're doing anything outside of that purpose, you're like, okay, I've strayed off from what I've intended to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's intentionality in that. And that to me is one of the most important things in running a business for yourself, because that's what we're doing, right? Like whether you call it freelancing, and this is a whole conversation in and of itself, like is it freelancing, is it entrepreneurship, is it a business, is it like whatever, but whatever you want to define it as, if it's aimless, it's just not going to produce much, right? Like even, I mean, that even is scriptural. Like if you want to go down that road, like, where there is a lack of vision, the people perish. I'm like, in your company, if there's a lack of vision, it's not as dire as people perishing, but it is like a dream can perish if you don't have a path or something to center you back, like that, that compass analogy, like, would bring you back to true north. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to hit any marks. Like, success doesn't come by accident, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Not usually.
not you. That's fair. But even like success that does happen by accident, then it has to be cultivated and
Yeah.
shaped, and like, it's not going to stay on accident, right?
Yeah.
And so, I think it's, however you want to, analogize that. That's not a word. However you want to, like, credo that, you need to have these building blocks, and you need to have this true north, and you need to have this thing that kind of guides you into what you're doing. Otherwise it's aimless, and you're not. I just don't believe, again, this is just a reiteration, I don't believe that aimlessness is effective.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, for me, that's what it boils down to.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that something that has been a critique of people, of me, and I think it's fair. I think there's good and bad in it. Is that my attention span can wander, like, a little bit. I wonder if I have undiagnosed ADHD, but in a business sense, on a larger scale, like, not so much like in this day, but like,
I want to do this, and then this, and then this, and then this.
right,
Yeah,
right, and where it's like, okay, I started a recording studio, and then it eventually closed, and so it's like, okay, I'm doing video, and then it was like, oh, maybe I'm gonna do more monetizing content that I create, or maybe I'm gonna try to do it for other people, and maybe that way I do that is gonna be this, like, brand doc kind of direction, or maybe I'm gonna try to get more corporate, or then it's like, maybe I should do podcasts, and there's kind of this wandering. And I think it's good and bad, because the bad side is you run the risk of just any of them probably could have worked, and I didn't, maybe I didn't put the time to see it through. But on the other side, the way I'm choosing to look at it for the most part is that I'm in a continual pursuit of trying to find the most viable option, like the best thing that sits in the Venn diagram of what I enjoy doing and what people need done. And I've kind of seen my whole professional career as like a pursuit of trying to find that thing. And I actually think recently I've started to figure it out. But before I had language around my why, like why I'm doing this at all, I had no metric of figuring it out.
Right.
There was nothing. It was like I felt like I was living in this tension of what I enjoyed doing and quote unquote what could work. And it was just like, and it wasn't even like I had data for that. It's just like you see everyone has a million messages telling you what you're supposed to do on social media, and it's like, you need to be doing this thing, you need to be doing this thing, or I quit my job and now I'm doing the dream, and it's all this stuff, and it's like, well, there's got to be a way for this to work. What does it mean? And it wasn't until I was like, okay, I care deeply about telling stories. I know that I need to be at least somewhat involved in creating things, because that becomes my anchor where I get rejuvenated again. That's what Over the Edge was, that podcast for me for a long time. It was like, I sit down, I can reflect on my life, I can put it together in a story that I think matters. So it was figuring out some of those things that really helped be an anchor that also then let me kind of wander and be like, okay, well, inside of creating things that matter, how can what does the world need so that I can actually build a life that I want and actually build this in a way that it's like it should be successful. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does make sense, because you're almost reiterating my point. But like, the thing is, in your context, it's so funny because maybe this is a tangent, but like, people when you're a creative entrepreneur, you almost have to have that like business ADHD because otherwise you're just stagnating.
Yeah.
And that might feel like it goes against my point, but you have these guardrails, right? So you've set up this leash of like what you can wander in, and all of the things that you've wandered in kind of still would anchor you back to your why. You just have like the process. There needs to be a permission. Like, yes, have a why, have the solid grounding, have the anchor point, but there needs to be a permission to have curiosity and wonder inside of that.
Yeah.
As long as there's guardrails of like, okay, this is outside of true north, and that's not going to accomplish the goals that I want to set in. And so like, that's what I'm hearing you say is like, you have your whys, you have your anchoring, but you're allowing yourself to have permission to figure out what that looks like and what that means. Because the thing with video production or entrepreneurship in general is like, it can look like what you want it to look like.
Yeah.
To a degree, right? Like, and sometimes the social media thing, we're like, oh, well, that guy's making this and his content looks like this and mine doesn't look like that. And so it can be deflating.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing for me. Like, I found part of my why, I would say in the beginning, used to be like to be the best at it.
Yeah.
To make the best looking content, to have like these sizzle reels that are just dope. And like, that's not part of my why at all, like, anymore. I still want to get better. That's part of like the invest in myself and like honing in the craft, but that's not a motivation for me anymore.
Yeah.
Because I've realized, and this again goes off topic to the question, but it's worth talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've realized if you own a video production agency and you're going to a client, you need to understand that your work is going to be aesthetically better than anything that company can provide for themselves. So you don't need to try to sell them that that's going to be what you do, right? Like, it's going to look better.
That's kind of a prerequisite.
Yeah, even if you're just starting, it's going to look better.
Yeah.
Because most business people that operate a business that has nothing to do with the reason why you're showing up is because you have a different thing to offer them that they potentially need, right? And whether that's for a marketing purpose or not. Like, because 9 times out of 10, if you go to a restaurant, they're not thinking, I need to have a microphone for social media content.
Right.
And so just the fact that you have a microphone means that your production value is elevated.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so knowing that, like, the why, like bringing it back to this why, my why used to be provide the best possible content that I could so people would want to hire me. Like, that's not a good why. I had to abandon that why.
Yeah.
Instead, it was, how can I add value? And that became a why. Like, a huge why for me is I actually really, really enjoy solving problems that people have and adding so much value that it builds connection and relationship. Like, I have clients who I don't even do work for anymore that I still talk with.
Yeah.
Because we're friends.
Like, becoming the person in their life that holds the secrets, the keys, the advice, the tips.
And so that has become a really powerful why. It's like, I get to build relationship and connection in this context, in this way. And I still do dope videos sometimes that just make me happy. Like, I did one for, I got to be ringside at a UFC event.
That's dope.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd do it again though.
Really?
Yeah, it was fun. I can't say that if the opportunity arose for me to do again, I would, depending on some context. But it was grueling filmmaking. Like, it was.
Yeah.
I was like hunched over the ring, so close to, like, a guy kicked a guy in the face and all of the sweat flew on me. And I was like, oh. you know, like,
yeah,
you can hear them. Like, I'm almost confident I heard somebody's ribs crack. Like, it was, but it was a lot of fun. But I found, so I did I freelanced. I did this thing in Naperville, and it was like the prom night thing for special needs folks.
Oh, nice.
I can't remember what it's called. It was like the Tim Tebow thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
It was like they had this whole like big prom and this red carpet, and they were like called kings and queens, and they would crown them and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like holding my camera the whole time, and I'm just weeping. Like it meant so much to me to be there.
Yeah.
Like I had more enjoyment and fulfillment out of being at that event than I did filming for the UFC thing.
Yeah.
Like, but that was cool.
Yeah.
I made a way cooler edit
Mm-hmm.
at the UFC thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, and so there's a huge thing, like why it's so important, that I realized the UFC thing was cool, but it wasn't hitting my true north, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not why I make content. It's not why I provide this service for people. And so I probably won't do that again.
Mm-hmm.
I might,
Yeah.
just for fun, but it's not something that I'm going to gear my company towards,
Yeah.
because it's not in the scope of what is important
Yeah.
to me. It's not in the scope of what I want to build my company around. And that's the thing that, like, I got the permission and freedom to experiment in that and
Mhm.
realize, okay, that's not what I'm going to do. Now, for some people, and like there was a kid there who I met, really talented videographer. He wants to be a sports videographer. Like, so in his why, like he's going to funnel that direction, and he's gotten way more of those jobs. And I follow him on social media, and he's killing it. He's filming for college football games, and he's, you know, doing all this. Like, he's probably going to be working for ESPN soon. And that fit in the avenue of his why, like something he was passionate about and wanted to do. For me, I experimented with it, and I was like, no thanks. You know, like that's not going to satisfy the why, like the thing that's burning inside of me.
Yeah.
And so I don't have to waste time now doing that, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's, again, there needs to be flexibility and freedom to figure that out, especially when you're first starting. Because if you kind of have inklings of your why and you still experiment, it allows you to niche down. And I actually say that loosely because I am not a niche content creator. I have clients in like very non-sexy, like HVAC companies. One of my bigger clients is a Mexican restaurant. I have a guy who runs a pottery thing. I have a lady who does geriatric.
So you're all over the place.
Like literally, in terms of niche, like it's all over the place. But the thing that's consistent inside of it is I'm providing value and meeting them with what they need to solve the problem that they have in their business. Yeah. And so it is niched, even though it's broad. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. When it comes to figuring out why you would want to work for yourself, this is what I think I've learned. Running a business, starting a business, you can do whatever you want, but none of it will be what you think it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you can, if you have a passion for weddings and you want to get into the wedding videographer space, you absolutely can. And it also is going to be way harder than you expect. There's going to be, you're going to give up all of your weekends for the foreseeable future. You're going to be dealing with people that very rarely have that much money to pay you typically, like, because they're not businesses with marketing budgets. Like there's always going to be, like, the pursuit of whatever your dream is always going to come with a lot of stuff that's really challenging. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. That's not bad. But if, as you're, like, for me, wandering, trying to find the thing, if like a trigger for you is like, man, this is really hard. It doesn't seem like it's, that can become a mirage where you think that this challenging stuff that's coming with it is an indication that it's not going to work. And I had to learn that there is a difference. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I was just going to wander aimlessly.
Yeah. I think the other thing, too, as you're saying that, like, you're talking about weddings, like I did 50 weddings in 2024.
I have done like 3 or 4 weddings total. I like them, but I wouldn't want to do them all the time.
So I like doing weddings. And
I like shooting them.
yeah, we've talked about this.
We've talked about this. Like
Like
yeah.
I can hammer out a highlight edit on a wedding in like 4 or 5 hours.
The stress of the idea of being able to shoot an entire wedding by myself and get like interview things and little happy words from the wedding party and get the bride walking down and the groom's reaction and not miss anything would stress out so many people, but it kind of like gets me going. Like I'm like, ooh,
Well, so that's the thing is
I
like
gotta get everything.
it challenges me as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
It like when you're doing a wedding, and this is why I will always do weddings. I'm not gonna do 50 ever again. And I mean,
Yeah.
unless I guess I can't never say never, Justin Bieber.
Right.
But like my plan is to not do 50, but actually doing weddings fulfills a part of my why in that providing value, in that I love having the outlet to tell a story for no other purpose than it's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
And weddings has that outlet for me.
Yeah.
Whereas like providing value for a business or solving a problem for a business is so that that business can grow most of the time, right? Like that's that marketing angle. And so I do like there's different pressure. The pressure to get the shot to master the filmmaking is there, but there's no pressure that then to like serve a purpose. Like if they don't hit a certain number of leads or a quota, or it didn't solve the problem the way that we anticipated it would, like weddings doesn't have that pressure.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's an ebb and flow on like my cortisol levels in doing different things.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoy the relationship building. And I love it when you shoot a wedding with a bride and a groom. And they're so ecstatic. It's like I pride myself on making the day of so stress-free for a bride and groom. Like every time I do a wedding, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine having not had you here. Like I can't fathom that. And that to me is like, okay, I've added value. Like I've done my job. I did more than just point and click with a camera, whether, because I do photography too. So whether a photo or video at a wedding, I've really made this day special for this couple. And that's really important to me. That's really special. And so huge honor. So I will do weddings. I'll probably always do a few weddings.
Yeah.
But going back to like the reason why I brought that up is because it was so interesting. Like when I was trying to evaluate what do I want my company to be, I actually thought about, do I just do weddings? Do I, and just doing weddings doesn't fulfill my why, even though having weddings in my repertoire can.
Yeah.
But if I were to just do that, I would be missing out on so much more that I feel even called to. Like I feel like there's been some sort of like, hey, I want you to tell these kinds of stories, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like figuring it out and navigating it. The thing that was funny though about weddings is almost every single like content creator, filmmaker that I know, like almost unanimously despise weddings.
Yeah, dude. I've had a similar experience. People be like, I hate weddings. It's like, I don't hate them. I hated editing. Well, the editing can be overwhelming to me because there's so much there. But shooting a wedding, I love it.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
I mean, like I'm a people person.
Yeah.
And I just like being around people. I used to be a break dancer in a former life.
Did you actually?
Yeah. Yeah. Now I just break when I dance, but yeah, dude, I used to do like head spins and like all of the stuff.
Seriously?
Yeah, dude.
That's sick. That's sick.
But so I always like at a wedding, I'll like, when I'm about to wrap up and like tearing down equipment and stuff, I'll go up to the bride and groom. I'll be like, oh, by the way, I used to be a break dancer. And and if there's a song on that you can breakdance to, I was like, they're like, oh, prove it. And it's like, there's still like a ham part of me that likes,
Yeah.
so I'll do some dance moves and stuff like that, and people will freak out, and then, it's fun. I enjoy that.
There was a wedding I shot, and they did Footloose, and I know the like square dance to Footloose, and a lot of people don't. And so
Like the actual moves from
the actual
movie. Yeah.
well, like there's like the proper moves for it. And so I remember there was like maybe one person that knew it, but if I remember right, there wasn't anyone that confidently knew it. And I had shot so much of like people dancing at this point. I was like, I'm good. So I'm holding my camera on a gimbal, and I just like take the charge, and I'm doing it. And so it was a fun little thing too. It's like, oh, let me show you all how it's done.
Yeah.
It was fun.
I've had dance battles with DJs at weddings.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude. It cracked because I don't know. People just look at me sometimes and probably underestimate what I'm capable of. I've had that my whole life. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I've also had people look at me and not know what to think.
Yeah.
Like, what are you?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's a rude way to say that question. But
Yeah.
for the record, I'm Asian Indian.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It never occurred to me to ask, but I never knew that. Huh.
Well, I appreciate that it never occurred to you to ask.
Yeah.
So people ask all the time.
Really?
Not part of any of what this podcast is supposed to be about. Speaking of,
I'm white. Just completely.
We're
and
clipping
fully.
that for social media, by the
Yeah.
way. I'm Asian Indian. I'm white.
I'm just
White.
was German somewhere way back in our family, but yeah, just.
I actually found out I was Indian because I did the 23andMe thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was told my whole life that I was Mexican and German.
Huh.
None of those things.
Maybe I'll have to do it. Maybe I'm completely wrong.
You're Polish.
Yeah,
like-
maybe I'm not just like a straight up white boy.
Oh, you have a very German name.
Yeah, Shumaker.
Yeah.
It was probably Shumaker before. And
Shumaker?
probably, yeah.
I'm sorry, that was so racist of me.
No, it's okay. I think whatever German card I have, you get a pass.
Nice. Well, so we should move on. We should get back on track. We're going down tangents.
We're pretty much out of time for this conversation, but I do want to just land it with some application points. Like if there's, we're still finding our audience, but if there's somebody listening that either has thought about like starting their own business or has been doing it for a while and has been feeling kind of aimless, how would you recommend they start identifying what that why is?
That's a great question. I think that they have to discover it through trial and error, and give yourself the freedom, especially when you're first starting, whatever kind of company you're starting. I think we're gearing this obviously towards creative people, like people who want to be video production or podcast production or music production, right? Like, give yourself the freedom to experiment and figure out what that looks like. But keep going back to, don't go back to what makes you feel good. I think there has to be a sustainability factor. What is accomplishable for you with your skill sets, your limitations, your belief systems, like all of that plays a factor, right? So it's not just this like, you follow your passion and do what is right by, you know what I mean? Like there has to be some of that, but it also has to be rooted in reality. Like one of the things that I feel is important in this conversation, which I'll try to say very, very quickly, is that this can't live in the realm of ethereal. It has to be real world. And what do I mean by that? I think when creative people really love philosophizing and theorizing about stuff, and it becomes part of like the ADHD thing that gets out of hand and not good. Yeah. You have to be rooted in some practical things, right? And so what is accomplishable? What is in front of you? And then when it comes to a why in context of that conversation now, you have to determine what is important inside of what is accomplishable. Yeah. And so you develop kind of a backpack, so to speak, or a toolbox of things that help you navigate towards a goal. Yeah. And again, um, if you're just like throwing crap on a wall and seeing what sticks, that's not great, but there has to be some of that experimentation, right? And
Yeah.
so practically speaking, look at what is important to you, look at what's real, and start making those things merge.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Well, this has been, I would say, a solid pilot episode of our podcast. We have an email address. If you have any feedback or ideas, we would love to hear them because, I mean, we're doing this because we wanted to talk more, but also because we want to like offer value and have some commiseration among other creatives because it can be lonely and challenging. So we have an email address, canyouchangethemusic@gmail.com. Also, wherever this is posted, if you could leave us a rating or a comment or a question or anything like that to engage with it, that would be super valuable as well. And we will talk to you next time.
Hey.